There are more productivity tools available today than at any point in human history. More apps, more systems, more frameworks, more hacks. And yet, burnout is rising. Attention is collapsing. And millions of people feel mentally exhausted before the day has even begun. In his book, The High-Performing Mind, former professional athlete Andrew D. Thompson argues that the modern crisis is not a lack of effort, but a misunderstanding of how the mind actually works under pressure. Because most people are not training their mind for clarity, they are unknowingly training it for stress, distraction, and reaction. And the consequences of that conditioning quietly shape almost every part of modern life. We are running a 21st century nervous system on a 20th century idea of hard work. The belief that if you push harder, stay longer, sleep less, grind more, the results will eventually follow. But for many people, working harder is not producing better outcomes. It is producing exhaustion dressed up as ambition. There is a difference between effort and impact, between motion and direction. Many people are not failing because they are lazy. They are failing because they are reacting. Reacting to emails, to interruptions, to stress, to the expectations of others. Living in permanent response mode with no deliberate pause between stimulus and action. Andrew D. Thompson understands this personally. In 2016, his body collapsed entirely. Burnt out, bedridden, unable to function. And from that experience, he began rebuilding not only his physical health, but the architecture of his mind. What emerged became the high-performing mind. Not a motivational system, not productivity theater, but a framework for understanding how the mind behaves under pressure and how it can be trained to respond differently. While modern self-help culture tells people to optimize harder, Thompson proposes something more radical. The mind is not a machine to endlessly push. It is a system that must be trained, stressed, and recovered with intention. And perhaps that changes everything. Here is something most people never stop to consider. Your mind is training itself right now. Not only when you meditate or journal or study, every moment of every day, your brain is reinforcing patterns. The real question is not whether you are training your mind. The question is, what are you training it to become? When you procrastinate, you are not simply avoiding a task. You are rehearsing avoidance. You are strengthening the pattern that says, when discomfort appears, retreat. But when you stay focused on something difficult, even briefly, you are reinforcing a different identity, a mind that knows how to remain present under pressure. Thompson describes two modes of operating: the grind and the gym. The grind is familiar. Do more, stay busy, fill every hour, measure your value through output. But the gym works differently. Apply stress deliberately, recover intentionally, build progressively. A high-performing mind is not created through endless volume. It is created through the quality of the mental patterns repeated each day. If you spend every hour overwhelmed, rushed, and overstimulated, you are not becoming more productive. You are training a frantic mind. And a frantic mind is rarely creative, rarely clear, and rarely resilient. Most people think resilience means becoming emotionally hard, like armor, something that blocks pressure from getting in. But Thompson offers a different image. a thermostat. Not something that ignores the environment, but something calibrated enough to respond without losing control. A thermostat recognizes the temperature in the room. It simply refuses to let the room dictate its behavior. That distinction matters enormously, because emotional regulation is not emotional suppression. It is awareness without surrender. Throughout the high-performing mind, Thompson identifies 12 attributes connected to sustainable performance: clarity, focus, confidence, emotional regulation, adaptability. But unlike many frameworks, he does not stop at abstract concepts. He introduces specific micro-routines designed to train these states repeatedly. Small behaviors performed consistently until they become neurological conditioning. There are echoes here of Atomic Habits by James Clear. The idea that repeated behavior slowly reshapes identity. But Thompson pushes further into recovery, stress response, and attentional endurance. He is not only asking, "What should you do?" He is asking, "What kind of mind must you build to continue doing it consistently?" Think about the last message that instantly changed your emotional state. A critical email, a passive-aggressive comment, an unexpected complaint. Most people know exactly what happens next. A rush of heat, defensiveness, reaction. The nervous system responds before awareness arrives, and afterwards, regret often follows. Thompson describes this as the low-performing loop. Stress, reaction, regret. And most people live inside this cycle unconsciously. His solution sounds deceptively simple. Insert a pause. Not a dramatic pause, not a retreat from life. Just enough separation between stimulus and response to ask a different question. What is actually happening here? And what response is most useful? That pause changes everything, because emotional intelligence lives inside that space. The stressful email is no longer an attack. It becomes information, data, something to interpret rather than absorb emotionally. The goal is not to eliminate stress. That is impossible. The goal is to create awareness before reaction. And the quality of a person's life is often determined by how much space exists between those two moments. There is a version of discipline most people know very well. Thompson calls it dirty discipline, the white-knuckled version, forcing yourself to perform actions you fundamentally resist, dragging yourself through routines while internally fighting every step. It works temporarily, until exhaustion arrives, because willpower eventually runs out. Dirty discipline separates behavior from identity. You are not someone who naturally trains, focuses, or follows through. You are someone forcing yourself against resistance every day. That becomes psychologically exhausting. Thompson offers a different approach: the warrior mentality. Instead of forcing behavior, you reinforce identity. The 5 minutes of morning silence, the made bed, the walk, the difficult conversation, all become evidence. Evidence that you are someone who follows through, someone who keeps promises to themselves, and the brain responds powerfully to accumulated proof. Identity is not formed through affirmations alone. It is formed through repeated evidence. Over time, the behavior stops feeling forced. It becomes expression. You are no longer performing discipline. You are embodying it. Most people plan for success. Very few plan for adversity. But reality rarely unfolds according to ideal conditions. Unexpected setbacks arrive. Deadlines shift. People disappoint you. Energy collapses. And when reality conflicts with the fantasy version of the plan, many people psychologically unravel. Thompson addresses this directly. In The High-Performing Mind, he argues that resilience begins before the setback arrives. The tool he recommends is simple: if-then planning. If this goes wrong, then this is how I respond. If I fail this week, then I restart immediately. If the meeting collapses, then I regroup and adapt. Failure stops becoming an ambush because the response has already been rehearsed mentally. That changes the emotional experience completely. The pain may still exist, but paralysis weakens. Preparation creates stability, and stability creates resilience. We often speak about time management as though time is the scarce resource. But for most people, the real scarcity is attention. A person can have 8 free hours and still accomplish nothing meaningful if their attention is fragmented across stress, notifications, unresolved emotion, and constant distraction. Thompson shifts the focus away from time and toward cognitive presence. The real question is not, how many hours do you have? The real question is, how present can you remain inside those hours? He calls this attention hygiene, regularly noticing where your mind actually is. A high-performing mind is not permanently focused. That is unrealistic. A high-performing mind simply notices distraction quickly and returns intentionally. The drift is not failure. Failing to notice the drift is the failure. And attention, like endurance, is trainable. Each return strengthens awareness. Each moment of conscious redirection builds psychological stamina. Here is something worth remembering. You are the same person 10 minutes after failure, only wiser. Thompson's 10-minute rule places a boundary around emotional collapse. Not denial, not toxic positivity, a limit. A reminder that failure should inform you, not define you. Most people catastrophize setbacks. A single mistake becomes evidence of permanent inadequacy. One awkward interaction becomes proof they are not enough. The mind extrapolates instantly. The 10-minute rule interrupts that spiral. After 10 minutes, you return. Not because the failure did not matter, but because your future still does. Without this ability, people stop taking meaningful risks. They avoid uncertainty entirely, and slowly, potential begins shrinking around fear. One of the most important ideas in The High-Performing Mind is also one of the simplest. The brain is biological. Mental performance is not separate from physical well-being. Sleep, hydration, movement, recovery. These are not secondary lifestyle habits. They are inputs into cognitive function itself. You cannot build a resilient mind inside an exhausted body. A walk is not avoidance. It is neurological regulation. Sleep is not laziness. It is where emotional processing, memory consolidation, and executive function recover. Modern culture often treats the body like a machine that exists to serve productivity. Thompson rejects that entirely. The body is not separate from the mind. It is the environment the mind operates within. And respecting that biology is not weakness. It is intelligence. Accept what is going wrong, while remaining focused on where you want to go. That is the tension Andrew D. Thompson asks people to hold. Not denial, not despair. Awareness, combined with deliberate direction. The journey through the high-performing mind is ultimately a movement away from autopilot, away from unconscious reaction, and toward intentional design. The pause before the response, the recovery after stress, the repeated return to focus, the small acts that reinforce identity, these become daily mental training, not dramatic transformation, consistent conditioning. Because the mind is always rehearsing something. Every thought, every reaction, every repeated behavior is shaping the person you slowly become. And perhaps the most important question is this: in the next moment of stress, will you react like a machine running old programming, or respond like someone aware enough to pause?